then diya kya becomes a polar, right? Because also the problem is in Hindi we can drop the object, na? So that also is possible, but the real, you know, tell me, मैं जानना चाहती हूँ, बताओ, अनु ने उमा को दिया क्या? It's somewhat hard. So we'll leave it at that. I think that is one of the open problems. What makes that post-verbal position difficult? And okay, don't say focus. It's a non-focus position because you can get new information, things there. I think that, you know, one dissertation that if anyone who's looking at word order, that might be good to look at is Vijay Gambhir's dissertation. And she has like new information as per आज का program पेश करेंगे एक मशहूर कलाकार. This is very natural, especially if it's heavy, to put it at the end. So it's not a very, there isn't a, I don't think there's an explanation that you can get off the shelf, so to say. So that's an open issue. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to look at embedded context. Oh yeah, and this was the other thing that I wanted to put in as number 4, but really in a way it's sort of there. That phrases can be CP or Force P, Speech Act phrase, or whatever, CP. So the possibility of there being less or more structure is something that's there in the language, so that too will come up. Okay, so in embedded context, and you have to read it right, राम मानता है कि क्या धरती गोल है. Wait 1 second. The limits. A polar kya in an embedded finite clause is not acceptable unless the embedded finite clause is itself interpreted as a yes/no question. So this is a little hard to. What I think is intended is, does Ram believe that the earth is spherical? Dharti gol hai is a given, and you're asking, does he believe this? तो हम ये नहीं क्वेश्चन करें कि इज इट गोल है या नहीं. हम बस ये जानना चाहते हैं इज if Ram believes that or not, and that doesn't work. So Ram मानता है कि क्या धरती गोल है. So that is unacceptable. But in contrast, if you have an embedded infinitival clause, राम ने सीता को क्या तोहफा देना चाहा था? This is acceptable, right? And it means you want to know, of course, whether he wanted to give, and that's, so the kya goes with that, with the yes/no intonation. I guess now what else? Okay. And गरीबों को क्या पैसा देना अच्छी बात है, and this is just putting the kya inside the non-finite clause to bring out the same thing. So what's the main point here is that the embedded clause in 8. So you have non-finite clauses, and we know that in Hindi non-finite clauses come before the verb. We also know that non-finite clauses in Hindi are not scope-bearing, are not scopal domains. So you don't get the equivalent of English. In English we can say John knows what to do. It's an indirect question. For example, he knows that he should study, right? He knows to study hard if he wants to pass. If in Hindi we say Ram kya karna janta hai, that's not the, you're asking what is it he knows how to do. So this kind of goes with the, so what we're saying is matrix clause, yes/no clauses at the matrix level, of course, are hospitable to kya. What we have right now is, in this section, is one case of embedded embedded clause where kya is not possible, and that's a finite clause to the right of the verb. That is number 8. So now we're going to look at polar kya in embedded clauses with infinite clauses. So non-finite is also embedded perhaps, but We're not looking at non-finite. We're looking at variation between, so we're going to vary rogative and responsive, right? That's the first. So, any questions? So, okay. So that, remember, those are the two that we are kind of, we took as our null hypothesis. Should we think of kya as a yes-no operator? What is the job of a yes-no operator? It's to take, at whatever level, is to take a polar question and turn it into a multi-membered set. Whether you do it as coercion at the end or whatever, somehow we have to make available the other options, right? So, if you take it just as simply as that, then in principle, when you have a yes-no question embedded, you have the same process, right? By which things get coerced or become a multi-membered, starting out that they are converted from the nucleus proposition to a set with the nucleus and its negative, its complement set. So we are arguing that you can't get it. So Anu janti hai ki kya tum chai piyoge. What this question does not mean is Anu knows whether you want tea. So that is, if you want tea, she knows that you want tea. If you don't want tea, she knows that you don't want tea. I, the speaker, don't have to know. All I know is that whatever is the true answer, she knows. And under that reading, you don't get Anu knows whether you will drink tea for Anu janti hai ki kya tum chai piyoge. Right? I.e., this is not playing the same role that if or whether plays in English. So, if that's the yes-no operator, kya is not the yes-no operator. Now, I should mention, since this paper came out, there has been some work on polar kya. No, this paper has not come out. Since we gave this talk and it's been on our website and like it's not published, but it's been around a little bit. Dash and Syed in a talk last year, they say that in Bangla and Odia, polar kya cannot be sentence initial, while thematic kya can be. So, is that true that the thematic kya can be? So, I kind of remembered that Bhattacharya and Simpson said you can't have clause initial WH, but like there's obligatory topicalization before that. Okay. So, in any case, we already see something that has come up here, that just because Hindi has this free distribution doesn't mean every language will have the same distribution, even closely related languages. Our point here is that it does, in the context of a responsive predicate, it does not function like if or whether in English. And now if you look at the next one, oh, that's a typo. Polar kya in the complement of rogative predicates is okay. Okay, वो गलत लिखा हुआ, responsive नहीं होना चाहिए. Teacher ने अनु से पूछा कि क्या वो चाय पिएगी? And this should be okay, right? So, teacher ने अनु से पूछा कि क्या वो चाय पिएगी? And wonder, if you want to translate wonder like as in 11b, अनु जानना चाहती है कि क्या तुम चाय पियोगे? They're both okay. Notice, of course, that wonder translates into Hindi as know, want, right? Want to know. So the complement is a direct object of know, not of wonder. So, but these things are not so surprising from our perspective, since we've already looked at McCloskey's, work on inversion in English, but we're just bringing that up. When we started, we weren't really thinking of that, but so this is what's so fascinating about linguistics, right? First you study Irish, English, or whatever, and you see some pattern that has to do with inversion. Now you're looking at a unrelated language, a totally different phenomenon, and you start seeing the same patterns. That really tells you something about the nature of natural language. So, I don't know, restores your faith in it, in linguistics. Okay, so Rajesh did a corpus search and he found various instances of kya that a priori, so our initial understanding was that you get it with no I mean, you'd get it with ask and wonder, or maybe I don't even remember if we had that in whatever. But you don't get it with no. That was certainly a conviction. And then he came up with these, but all of them actually, if you notice, you will see fall in with the kinds of changes. This number 3, the point in number 3, that if you modulate the structure above no, things can get better. So look at 12. Okay, so 12 actually is not quite what we have looked at before. This is simply saying that noun complements can also have this property, can allow kya. So सवाल ये है कि क्या नई व्यवस्था कारगर साबित होगी. So these are question complements of nouns, right? So once you say सवाल ये है, you have to have कि कौन आएगा. You can't say सवाल ये है कि रवि आएगा. So you have a question, and then with a question you can also have a yes no question, and then you can have a क्या in it. Similarly, teacher ने अनु से पूछा कि वो क्या चाय, so this is कि वो ने पूछा कि वो क्या चाय पिएगी, या कि वो चाय पिएगी क्या. This is so the teacher asked Anu, so this is simply a rogative predicate. I don't know why we went here, but anyway, so we are allowing the same freedom of movement. It can be initial or final. And now this is, we are recalling, representing the embedded inversion facts in English that we are already familiar with. So rogative and responsive. So responsive has only this structure, CP1. Responsive can have both of these structures. I should say that, as I said in the lecture on McCloskey, that it's possible I misread McCloskey as claim. At one point in his paper, he seems to be claiming this distinction. But I think later reading it, that's not exactly what that may not be what he's claiming. So this has to be adjusted accordingly. But the point is that in the simple case, if you just have a responsive, then you don't get the structure that would make it okay for whatever reason. So you can say, I found out how they got into the building, but you can't say, I found out how did they get into the building. I asked him from what source could, or asked him from what source the reprisals could come. So that was the general. And then 15 is one of the naturally occurring sentences that he gives. Everybody wants to know, did I succeed in buying chocolate for Winifred, etc., etc. So 16, you remember, this is the paradigm that we looked at, right? I remember was Henry a communist versus do you remember was Henry a communist? And the negation apparently is somewhere in between. So now this is what, so it's striking that in Hindi you do some of the same features modulate the acceptability of embedded polar kya with responsives. And we have already seen an example with want to know. So that's the only way you can translate wonder. But now these are what he found in the Koch corpus. So जानना होगा, इसके लिए ये so this is जानना होगा. So with that modulation you get a modal on top of जानना. इसके लिए ये जानना होगा कि क्या सचमुच कोई नहीं आया. And that becomes okay. But you notice the prosody is really the prosody of yes, no in the embedded clause. And negation plus no. So we did find a case of negation plus no. कोई नहीं जानता कि क्या टीटो स्टालिन से मिले थे. So I assume this is also okay. And then also an imperative plus no. जाने, आप understood, कि क्या आपके बच्चे के पास email account है? So this is also okay, but again, notice the prosody is coming out in each of these. The embedded clause has a prosody that normally we don't get in yes no question. Yes, we are.
B is not correct in negation also, without negation.
Wait, B is?
Incorrect, like ungrammatical without negation.
Is not ungrammatical or is ungrammatical?
Is ungrammatical.
Yeah, without negation.
Yes.
So that's the point. कि if I say कोई जानता है कि क्या टीटो स्टालिन से मिले थे, no, no question intonation ऊपर, right? कोई तो जानता है. So you're saying because कोई and नहीं, but Hindi कोई is not a polarity item. Think of it as किसी को, या कोई हटा दो and make it Nehru or whatever, some name. Make it sub. सब जानते हैं कि क्या टीटो स्टालिन से मिले थे. Bad, no? That's the idea. So I think what the search revealed that there were no cases of janna plus kya, polar kya, unless there was something else. Either question on top, modal on top, or negation on top. So what you're saying is that, it's not that we found many cases of janna plus kya and we haven't presented it. I think maybe there are even numbers somewhere. But basically the only acceptable cases all had these extra features. So this is now our claim that now this is how we want to explain. Yeah, Nupur.
So this sentence, कोई नहीं जानता कि क्या टीटो स्टालिन से मिले थे, is also not correct. It's as incorrect for me as सब जानते हैं कि क्या टीटो स्टालिन से.
Okay. Let me read it again and see if you. कोई नहीं जानता कि क्या टीटो स्टालिन से मिले थे. You don't get it? I'll point you to. So how we collect data has become has always been an important issue. It's about methodology, right? When you look at corpus, certainly there are certain things missing. But one thing that what I want to point out is if you look at 16, ABC, negation is not as good. Again, this is one paradigm. Let me ask others. Do others also not accept 17B with negation? You don't accept it. Does anyone accept it with negation? 17B? So you see there's some. Does everybody accept it with 17A? Yeah, 17C. Jani, like आप पता करें. So, is there anyone who does not like 17C? Is there anyone who does not like 17A?
17A, I don't get that yes no intonation in where I think while in 17C I get.
But you.
The sentence is acceptable, but I get it with not within that yes no.
But the meaning you get is we don't know what it. So.
The meaning is the meaning given.
Okay. So to the extent that we should control for prosody, but what I'm trying to say to Nupur and Vyom's objection, that I'm not entirely surprised that the negation may cause a little. Everybody may not accept negation, and again, I have some idea why negation is less good than the question one in this case. And do you remember? But I don't want to actually speculate so much, except to say that this is in the corpus, and to the extent that people feel you should take seriously what's out there in some, I don't know from where this has come, but yeah.
I was just saying that, for example, instead of कोई नहीं जानता, if you add सब जानते हैं, क्या टीटो से, so they're both equally wrong. So if I accept one, I'll have to accept the other.
Yeah, no. So I accept your point that what we are claiming is that सब जानते हैं will be bad, and it improves with nahi, right? And that's what you're saying. You don't accept the contrast, and I'm giving a two-pronged answer. One, that it's not entirely surprising since negation does not seem to be as good a facilitator of these root phenomena as question for some reason.
What about हर कोई नहीं जानता?
See, हर कोई नहीं जानता. I don't know if you get the reading, but
if you place the cat at the end in 17B, does it make it
better
for Nupur and Vyom?
कोई
कोई
नहीं
नहीं
जानता
जानता कि टिटो स्टालिन से मिले थे क्या?
That is okay for me.
Yeah, with and without
It
neg also
doesn't accept
sounds good.
that.
If you place kya
But
at the end of the sentence.
my objection was different.
Okay.
It was about कोई जानता है.
कोई जानता है, सब जानते हैं. I'm saying कोई जानता है will mean there's someone who knows, right? But maybe people have a hard time with that, so I'm switching it to sub for no reason. And now we are saying sub, कोई नहीं जानता है. So there are several things coming up. One is, and I should write it. Oh no, I can listen to this, right, and recreate. Okay, good. So Praveen is saying that maybe this improves if we say कोई नहीं जानता कि टीटो स्टालिन से मिले थे क्या, or something.
कोई नहीं जानता कि टिटो स्टालिन से मिले थे क्या?
It's better, is what you're saying.
Slightly better.
Okay. And then you're saying that then I don't even need nahi. Perhaps I don't know. Okay.
No,
Yes.
I thought that why we are using negation here is that it facilitates the reading without the negation, this sentence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but my objection was that even without the negation, okay,
You said without the negation, you said it's good.
it's
No,
bad.
it's bad. And you're saying negation doesn't help.
Yes.
Right? That's what you're saying. Okay. And I'm saying, fine. This is in the corpus. It came out of the corpus this way. And what we are saying is, look, we see this effect elsewhere. This root. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit and say this. We want to analyze kya as root phenomena. Something that only happens in matrix clauses. Forget why for a moment. Root phenomena seems to have this property that is good with rogative predicates, not with responsive predicates. We see that more or less. But then root phenomena also seems to have this quirky possibility that sometimes it's okay with responsive predicates, but it's not random. It's not that one, depending on certain other things. If the responsive predicate itself is embedded under certain other things. Among those things, maybe negation is not so good a facilitator as some of the other things. And Nupur and Vyom seem to be, and maybe also Pratik, people who don't find negation that helpful. And I'm willing to accept that. Frankly, even if nobody accepted it with negation, it's not that the theory that we have will fall on its face. We would have to look more closely at what is the status of negation with respect to these things. But this is in the corpus, and I'm guessing that in a large enough, if one used this and then tried to control for all of the factors that everybody is saying and did a survey, my guess is there would be people who would like it, even if there are people who don't. So there is So as a linguist, I think we have to acknowledge this and also acknowledge the fact that it's not so good. So moving on, keeping in mind the time. Yes.
Could you please re-explain this thing, root phenomena actually? I'm a bit
Okay,
confused.
root phenomena simply means that certain things are good in matrix clauses. Okay, that's the starting off point. So I think this goes back to Ross. Everything goes back to Ross. But the idea is certain things you can do in matrix clauses. For example, inversion in English. For example, tag questions, etc., etc. Then people started noticing, or if you're doing German, that V2 should come, that there should be V2, the verb should come second. And if you look at the basic cases, you get, okay, matrix yes, embedded no. But then people started noticing that sometimes embedded clauses also have these properties. That's why it's called root phenomena. What we don't expect in embedded clause pops up sometimes. If it was systematic and always the case, then we wouldn't call it root phenomena, right? The fact that subjects get nominative case, we don't call it a root phenomenon because embedded finite clauses also, or accusative case or whatever. It's not called, there's no reason to call it something, give it the name of of a particular type of clause since it occurs all the time. But the reason this has created, this is a topic that has sort of cried out for explanation, is that it seems to occur, not always, sometimes, and slowly people are beginning to see there's a pattern when it occurs and when it doesn't occur. Okay? So that's root phenomena. One second. And we are saying, kya is a root phenomena? Pratik, bolo.
And आपने felicity condition में 3 बताया था कि the third one was that speaker believe that the hearer knows the answer. If speaker knows that the hearer don't know the answer, hearer doesn't know the answer, so क्या वो question पूछ सकता है या क्या, जैसे ये है कि क्या टीटो स्टैलिन से मिले थे? If I know that the hearer don't know the answer, then still it's a question or not?
No, so embed, okay. There's a difference between direct question and indirect question. ठीक है? In the canonical case, अगर direct question हम पूछ रहे हैं, did I ask Srikar, did Tito meet Stalin? Unless I'm a teacher questioning some history lesson, I don't know the answer, I think he knows the answer. So direct question, that's the case. But indirect question doesn't have the same felicity condition. ये indirect question है ना, it's not, इसका जवाब, we are not asking for the answer. We are simply saying X knows or doesn't know whatever is the answer to this question. So you can't really ask for the felicity conditions of that. Another way to think about it is that maybe wherever we place the felicity conditions may not be something that's available. It's only available in matrix clauses, quotations, etc. Okay. So the answer is the felicity condition doesn't apply to this at the moment. But your question would hold if, to the extent that, remember, I said sometimes questions become discourse active. So, what time are we supposed to leave this room? In 4:35, 4:45, right? So let me do this. Those are further questions about the pragmatics of these things, right? Let me present, I think what I have here is basically an answer to those two questions and how we get this ordering. That's as much as I want to do today, okay? Let me get through that and certainly stop you with questions on those points, and then maybe tomorrow we can think about the pragmatic conditions. Does that seem fair? Okay. So section 2.1, we are saying polar kya is not the yes no operator. That's the claim we want to make. Remember, that is what that sort of, okay, in principle it could be, right? That's what I said. You have a yes no operator and kya could be the lexical realization of that, optional lexical realization. And we are saying if that was the case, then take a sentence like Anu janti hai ki tum chai piyoge, which in Hindi does not have a question meaning. It does not mean ki agar if you want tea, she knows that you want tea. If you don't want tea, she knows that you don't want tea. So it doesn't mean the English sentence, Anu knows whether you want tea. Agar kya was the way to get a yes no operator, then this sentence 18a should have that meaning, and it does not. Does everyone get this point? Okay. Let's look at the next one. Anu janna chahti hai ki kya tum chai piyoge. This is of course fine. So why should there be this difference between responsive and rogative? And I think this is kind of more of that. Okay, so one question, I don't think 19a, let me see. Okay, this is just making the same point. I think there must be some further nuance there. So the question is, how do we make a embedded polar question? So in Hindi we can say, Anu janti hai ki tum chai piyoge ya nahi. Right? We have to add the ya nahi. And there's another one which we discuss in a later part of this paper. You can also say ki nahi. Right? Anu janti hai ki tum chai piyoge ki nahi. Now, ya can be used in declaratives, right? मैं चाय पीऊंगी या कॉफी, तुम चाय पियोगे या कॉफी, मैं जानती हूँ ये बात, right? You can make a declarative with या, you can't make a declarative with की, right? मुझे अच्छी तरह मालूम है कि तुम चाय पियोगे की कॉफी. Does की make it into a yes no? I don't think we tested it there.
Not yes, no, the alternative.
की नहीं. Yeah, not but yes no. The default is that no. So okay, I haven't checked with key in this position. Okay, this should tell you when you're trying to meet a deadline, you shouldn't bring up new things that you don't know the answer to. Okay, कोई बात नहीं. अनु जानती है कि तुम चाय पियोगे या नहीं makes it into a yes no question for sure, right? And that now now we'll add क्या. अनु जानती है कि क्या तुम चाय पियोगे या नहीं. People liked it. We thought it was not good. अनु जानती है, so no question, no negation, nothing. अनु जानती है कि क्या तुम चाय पियोगे या नहीं. We thought it was not good, and that's what our yes.
What if you have the question intonation with Janti?
Then you will get it. So it's crucial to control for the matrix to be declarative. And now what we are saying, so this is part of this idea about singleton. So we are saying, keep the matrix declarative. Don't put a question intonation there. And make the embedded clause into a yes no question by making it a polar alternative or not. And cat does not go with that. And I think either I have shut everybody up or people are more willing to go with, or people actually find that difficult to process, kya plus or not. Okay, and so now here's another interesting example. Also on this I should tell you there was lots of discussion between these these people who we mentioned. So Lisa Cheng, so the first part is like, you can't use kya to do the work of yes no, that we already showed. The second part is, maybe it's a clause typing particle, which is what Lisa Cheng had argued, that these are languages, WH and C2 languages are those that either obligatorily or optionally have a Q particle. So Japanese obligatorily, and she mentioned actually Hindi and Mandarin optionally. So in Mandarin, you have ma, that's this particle. And now what we tested was, John knows it rained ma yesterday, and we put that to kind of make sure that the ma is in embedded position. And that was not good. But again, if you see, John wants to know rain ma yesterday, that's good. So we're seeing the same kind of distributional difference between rogative and responsive. So that's our claim A, that it's not a yes no operator either in English, either in Hindi, neither in Hindi nor in Mandarin. And the other, and then we are saying a further thing. Suppose all the WH does is to type a clause as a interrogative. Let's say like Japanese. There's no problem in embedding Japanese Q morpheme in under either responsive or rogative predicates. Like, we didn't see any of these variations. Nobody has ever talked about Japanese Q morpheme as root phenomena. So nobody has ever said, there's nothing in the literature to indicate that. But even if there's some discussion, I'm sure among the Chinese speakers there will be some similar differences. But why should this even arise? So clearly they're different things. That's one thing. The second thing is, let's think about what does this clause typing, what's the functional motivation for clause typing? We are saying, as communicatively, declaratives and interrogatives should be distinguished, right? That would facilitate communication. To our way of thinking, wonder doesn't need that much help, because when I say wonder or ask, we already know that will take a question. So if there was some murkiness with wonder and ask, we could live with it, because functionally speaking, we would know that we have this, we have a plus WH verb, so of course we'd have a question there. It's no and other verbs that can take either plus or minus, that makes you think, here's a need to show us that this is a question. So and that's what we do with weather, right? We know that if I say, I know that it is raining, then there's no doubt about it's the proposition that she knows. But if I say she knows whether it's raining, then we don't know. It could be she knows that it is raining, because that's the true proposition, or she knows that it's not raining. That's where I want to know that we're dealing with the question. So it seems to us kind of pushing in the wrong direction for a clause typing particle. But there could be ways to fix it. So now what we are basically saying, to jump to the conclusion, is the following. If you turn the page on page 20, it's the structures in 22. Remember, we are saying that rogative predicates can take 4 P's. So this is drawing on McCloskey. And responsive predicates, at least in the basic case, immediately take CP. And now we want to say that in Hindi, you need a 4 P if the question denotation itself is a singleton. We start with a singleton set, and at 4 P, you can turn it, with the help of prosody, you turn it into a proper question. You coerce it into a multi-membered set. But no doesn't take this thing. So no is simply takes a TP, and there is no yes/no operator. So the TP itself has to do whatever work it can do. So there's no place at which, if you have a, Meri Bahar Jayegi, there's no way for it to become a multi-membered set, because the prosody resides in 4 P. Because that's where you have the speech act phrase, speech act operator quest, that is hooked to prosody, something like that. And if you say that, then for the moment, set aside the special cases, the matter of fluidity. But here's what, in 23 is what we kind of spell it out. So we make a claim that kya has a presupposition that the set it combines with has only one member. Okay? And therefore, so that's what we express with. Who left is a multi-membered set. This we already 23A. So we've just given you the semantics that we have been using, and you get 2-membered set. Did John leave? We say is a single-membered set, and only later at the higher, at a certain point, let's leave it. It's pragmatically coerced into John left, John didn't leave, a multi-membered set. And as we discussed yesterday, the context could be such that something else may be in focus. So the default is left and not left. Okay. So now what 24 has the meaning of kya that we give. So kya, the semantic value of kya is that it takes a set of propositions. So its type has to be a set of propositions, not a proposition. So it will combine with a C plus WH. And then it has a presupposition, that thing between the colon and the full stop, that is the presupposition. So it's like a check, right? So it looks at the question. Suppose, so this is, let me do this here. So I guess this is where kya is the head of 4 P or something like that. I don't think we took a stand. And the idea is kya combines with a CP. Okay? But this CP must be of type STT, set of propositions. So it can't combine with a declarative, because declarative is just a proposition, right? So that's the first thing the lambda q STT will rule out declaratives. So that's good. Now, if it is a polar question, we are saying this will be, it is raining. And so kya can combine with it, because it says there exists a P in Q. So stop me if this is, this is Q, right? The meaning of this is Q, a set of propositions. That's what I did here. So it takes something like this. If this was a non-W, this is plus WH, which is why at this point you get a set of propositions. Is this clear, or should I draw a clearer picture? Clear, good. And so in this case, its presupposition is met. You can do all your lambda conversion, but before you do lambda conversion, you check, is there one proposition in the set? So this says there exists a P in Q. Yes, I found a proposition in Q. And furthermore, every proposition in the set is equal to that same one. So this gets satisfied because I have only one proposition. So presupposition is checked. And so the meaning of this is exactly what the meaning of this is. See, lambda q q. So it gives you basically it's an identity function with a presupposition of uniqueness. So this is the set, it is raining. And now coercion, we'll look at this just like in at any point where you have prosody. So in English, the prosody is in Hindi, sorry. The prosody is what says, oh, I have a prosody, an intonation that's question. I have something that's of the question type, but it's a little defective. Let me fix it. Let me make it. Let me fill it out with the alternatives. Okay, something like that. In the case of a WH, what will happen? It will be something like Mary left, Sue left, right? Of course, it's the right type. You could have combined it, but the presupposition says there is one proposition in this set. You can choose this or this. Let's choose this. It's not going to work because every proposition is not equal to this. You can choose this. Every proposition is not going to be equal to this. And even if we had Mary and Sue left, this proposition also will not be equal to all of them, right? So it gets filtered out. I should say that this account we are taking basically from Baby Shu's work on Chinese Nanda that I had mentioned earlier, who looks at the same distribution facts for Naki, Mandarin Nandao, and two particles in Etwa and I'm forgetting in German, all of which have this property that they only go with polar questions, not with WH alternative questions. And this is essentially his idea that basically there's a presupposition of uniqueness. So the general idea is that there are particles that have such presuppositions. The Japanese Q mark is clearly not one of them, right? Okay, what else is there? Okay, and so yeah, we will come back to alternative questions tomorrow, because what we have seen so far, if alternative questions denote a set of at least two propositions, and if kya can go with alternative questions, then this is a problem. But we will come back to this. And then we say we need one more ingredient in order to account for the observed restriction on embedding. We claim that the coercion needed to turn a singleton set into a well-formed set with multiple alternatives is crucially dependent on matrix clause prosody in a language like Hindi, where the declarative interrogative distinction is not marked in the syntax. So for English, when we say John knows whether Mary is here, the whether carries the day. You don't need prosody particularly to turn it into. So of course you can get that prosody when we did inversion and all that. We haven't connected it to that, but that's the general idea. And so even in this case, you have plus WH, which just gives you a singleton, but if and whether then allows that coercion to go through without prosody. Okay, I think that's sort of all I need to say there. So if you look at 26, that's John wants to know. So, okay. So now we are saying, for whatever reason, know versus wants to know, wonder. The difference is that know does not allow the bigger structure, whereas wonder or ask, we should have just put ask, does. So when you have something that can take this a force P, you have two options. You have the smaller structure, one possibility, but that's not the one that allows for all of the relevant, doesn't allow the prosody. It's the second one that allows the prosody because you have force P, and that's where kya is. So we are treating kya as crucially tied to a bigger structure, matrix clause structure, force P, a speech act phrase. We are tying it to prosody in Hindi, in a language like Hindi, and we're tying it to the presence of this. So we're tying kya to the presence of these two things, the bigger structure and the prosody that we're saying goes with it. We don't have a complementizer that is equivalent. So this is the first part of our, so this is the sense in which we think the clause initial one is the default. That's how, assuming that the left periphery is also the left periphery in Hindi. It's not a given, it could be the right periphery, but whatever is the periphery, that's where kya resides. So any questions? The last piece is simply giving you the word order variations, okay? And now, so this will be interesting for those people who are looking at languages where you don't have as much variation. So the variation very simply is the following. Everything else comes from topicalization. Let's call it just scrambling, but actually later we argue that it's a form of topicalization, and we have some tests. So the first case is pretty simple. You can say, so this is the, we start out with, okay. If kya is pre-verbal, rising intonation is needed, we are a little unsure about the prosody of final kya, but I think I'm not going to go there. We are starting with this, 28. This is what we have said. There is a yes-no operator in CP. That yes-no operator simply creates a set with the member. It does not do, the coercion doesn't happen there. Then comes kya. Kya says, I'm happy with the yes-no question. And then force P says, I'm a language that doesn't have a complementizer. I use prosody to indicate my question status, and I'll do the coercion. So now for the distribution, you take subject, kya, object, verb. So S, kya, this is the order we are trying to derive. So we started with kya initial, and you topicalize the subject, and you get that order. So topicalization has to be above force P. Where is the complementizer?
Not in this example, but like in the for example, ki kya.
Oh, so your question is, suppose I was to say, वो जानना चाहता है कि क्या धरती गोल है, right? That's your question. Now you would say, oh, shouldn't ki be in yes, no, lower than kya? I think that's where you're headed, right? But Hindi ki is, so notice even without the kya, well, without, take a WH. वो जानना चाहता है कि क्या गोल है. Now you could say that's not yet in spec. The thing is this, it's not clear that Hindi ki is in the spec, is head of this CP that we see here. There are some, one example that I've always found very compelling that shows there's a difference between English that and Hindi ki, even though functionally that's how we translate ki, right? So in English we can say, John knows that Mary will do the work and that Sue will take credit for it. Whatever. Two ITPs we can coordinate, two CPs with that we can coordinate. Now in Hindi, I can't say, John जानता है कि Mary काम करेगी और की सू उसका क्रेडिट लेगी, right? You can't repeat the key with full. You can say कि मैनी काम करेगी और सू क्रेडिट लेगी. That's okay. So that makes you think that key has a closer connection with the verb than really with the clause below in some sense. I think there's also some work on where you put pauses, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, but there is a mismatch for English. I think
Right.
prosodically that goes with the verb, but syntactically it goes with the indirect.
Right. So if so, I may not be remembering this correctly. So of course you say that the earth is round is clear, but you can't. कि धरती गोल है सब जानते हैं. I think you can do that. I can't remember. There's some facts, but also if you can look at Veena Dwivedi's dissertation, Newman's dissertation from the early 90s. She had some discussion about where about the status of key. Like some people have called it a linker as opposed to a complementizer. But in a way, what we are saying is compatible with the idea that key is not. What we need is key not to be in the CP position, right? So we are not going to put it. So here's another fact. In English, you can't have that and if together, or that and whether, right? In Hindi, you can totally do that, right? Ki tum jaoge ya nahi, or ki kya tum jaoge. So we have, under this view, we have to think of key as higher than force P. So the rest of it should be pretty obvious. Basically, you get the number of things you topicalize to the left of force P, you get variation. So first you topicalize the subject, you get S, Kya, O, V, I, O, V, whatever, however many arguments you have, and you can keep moving all of them. We have some problem, you can have multiple scrambling or topicalization. Clearly there's some problem with moving all the arguments, right? So I'll come to, I think we have some examples there, but in principle, if you move everything, what do you get? Clause final, right? You may move the whole TP below kya to the front, you're going to get clause final T. So let me make 2 points and then I'll stop till tomorrow. A, is there some independent evidence for these topics? Okay, fine, you're saying anyone can move the pieces to the left and say this is how we get the order. What does it correlate with? I'm using the word topicalization. Are there reflexes of that? Is there some independent evidence for that? How does this change information structure? If you want, sure, it gives you the word order. That's one thing that we will discuss. The other thing I want to bring up is this paradigm in 30, which has to do with why you don't get, or what, are there any constraints to this movement? So 30 and 31 basically have direct objects that are very bleached or very indefinite like, or so we know that topicalization and scrambling requires people to say specificity, definiteness, some kind of discourse givenness. So we are choosing two types of direct objects that seem to lack this feature that is that topicalization seems to want. And so the first one is a weak indefinite object. So the base position is Ram ne, so forget kya, okay? I'm just going to read Ram ne kuch khaya. That's the base form. As a question, Ram ne kuch khaya? Kya Ram ne kuch khaya? But now you say yeah, but if you, so kuch is the direct object. Now I'll add kya. Kya Ram ne kuch khaya? That's fine. Ram ne kya kuch khaya? That's fine. But Ram ne kuch kya khaya sounds odd, not because there's any problem with kya per se, but the topicalization of kuch is odd because kuch is so weak. It's a weak indefinite that we know shouldn't undergo topicalization. And then 30B is an idiomatic object. So the base is रीना ने व्यापारी को 45 लाख का चूना लगाया. So chuna lagana is not taking chuna and putting it on the vyapari, right? It's not, you're not paying wholly. And the claim is that if we were, and then it wouldn't be 45 lakh ka chuna. I don't know if you can find that. So the point is that if you could think of it as a real object, thematic object, then you should get what you won't get with the idiomatic reading. So again, you can say, क्या रीना ने व्यापारी को 45 लाख का चूना लगाया? Fine. रीना ने क्या व्यापारी को 45 लाख का चूना लगाया? But you can't say रीना ने व्यापारी को 45 लाख का चूना क्या लगाया? Maybe I didn't give it the best. रीना ने व्यापारी को 45 लाख का चूना क्या लगाया? It's kind of awkward, right? Because you're breaking up this idiom chunk doesn't quite have the properties the scrambled object should have. So that's our one piece of evidence we are giving for the word order variation being a case of topicalization. And the last one is simply what I already said, that if you took the force P, kya, CP, and you topicalize the whole CP or maybe the TP, I don't know that you can tell in Hindi, then you would get Anu ne Uma ko kitab di kya. So I will stop with that. Any questions? We have a few minutes. Yeah,
One is a clarificatory one. So when you are deriving that kya in between the object and the verb, so there is a split version of it, right? I mean, for you that is okay without the idiomatic.
So you're
too.
You're talking to the non-idiomatic one in 6, right? Yeah, 6. Yeah.
So
Okay.
for those who don't like it pre-verbally at all, would have a double kind of a badness about 30, right? I mean,
About 30.
pre-verbal,
Yeah. Because so it's possible, like if we could do a gradient thing, because certainly for me it's bad too, right? These.
Yeah.
I am kind of in two minds because see what happens with 6 is in a sense I'm saying Anu ne Uma ko, so subject object, kitab, I've got my direct object, kya di? And I think maybe if I read it a certain way I'll get it. But I acknowledge that it's a little harder with kya. Wo kitab kya di? I don't know. Anu ne Uma ko wo kitab de di kya? No, but I'm putting it at the end. See, there is some resistance to the pre-verbal. So one option may be that, we're talking about the pre-verbal position being a designated focus position. So maybe the tendency is to put it in focus position, but it's not really a focus particle, something like that. But I do see so I'm not like strongly, the percentage means I'm less willing to go to bat against this data than I think Rajesh feels quite strongly that it's not acceptable to him. But yeah.
Okay. Another question was, since it all looks like kya does not combine when you have a WH question.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about island, WH island, how do we know that the problem, so the island effect actually arises because of island or because there is in general resistance of the combination of Yasno plus WH?
So when we were looking at weather, so okay, let me see if I...
Hindi, in English you would obviously know, but...
Because you would move so let me see if I got this right. So the sentence in English that we were testing was with a WH island, right? And so we are testing to see whether we can say, who do you wonder whether she talked to, right? Some example like that. And so wonder, and this would be CP in the old way at least, whether she saw. Let's just keep it simple. P, this is who, right? So and it improves with which, whatever, with stuff like that. And the idea is, so whether cannot combine with WH. This is just a fact, right? We don't say, did you talk to who? It's just bad in English. And the explanation that there hasn't been a good explanation for this, because you can build the meaning. It can be done. However, what Maria Bittner argued, that if you take answer D, which says there's only one true proposition in this set, maximally informative. You have, let's say, who ranges over two individuals, Mary and Sue. And you have a yes-no operator in the old system. So I don't know if with the Bollinger thing, if this gets reworked. Or maybe it does. Yeah, okay. No, it does. So you have two propositions, and the yes-no operator gives you the yes-no of each one of them. So Mary left, Mary didn't leave. Sue left, Sue didn't leave. There cannot be only one true proposition in this set, because for each individual, either that individual left or didn't leave. And so the uniqueness requirement of the answerhood operator is not met. So that's what she used, the answerhood operator that I had in my book, to say this gives us an explanation for why we don't combine the two. So, of course, if we had left it here, it would just have been an ungrammatical sentence. This poor sentence is not going to work anyway, right? You would think that this will help, because you have who did John wonder whether she saw. Now this becomes okay, because wonder has a WH, and this WH is only combining with a free variable, so it's good. But the sentence is still bad, and that shows that this is an island, right? So this is English. Any question, is that in Hindi?
Yeah, because syntactically we don't see. So the only thing that we did was to put what looks like a, so the word, otherwise there is no difference. You have a WH and then you just put a kya, but then they are anyway not going to combine.
So they are not going to combine, and actually the problem is that as far as so the fact is that Hindi CPs are islands, and they are strong islands, right? Basically. So you're talking covert scope or overt extraction?
Either. I mean, covert.
Covert? Let's do the covert one, because that's easier. So Jim Huang's claim was that, yes, this is bad in English and any overt fronting language. But if this is WH in C2, which Hindi would be, let's say, Kisko, then islands are irrelevant, so they should be okay under this reading, the same reading. And of course, people in the early 90s that's what they started with, right? Because this was the prevailing view, and to some extent still is. But Hindi finite clauses are islands. We don't know why. Maybe because of the whole, ye ki business. So they're really more complex. But even if they're islands, it doesn't matter. It means that WH and C2 cannot violate islands. So that's the first part. That's why in fact, we're not testing islands at all. We're just testing that the finite clause is a boundary. Maybe we are still testing. So what we're saying is this is regardless of whether it's an island. That's what I should say, right? Whether we have a WH here or not, it's an island. And then the second part of the question is whether, okay, we can't do that, but can we do extraction through scrambling or something? And there is a little more nuance, right? Because if you have a ye here, किसको John ये जानता है कि क्या मैरी ने देखा. So I don't think we can do it with whether, because of, I think that's where you started with. Since we can't have he nahi, we can't. So yeah, we don't have to have a WH island. We just have to have a CP finite CP, and then we can test it. So in a way, it was a little overkill, right?
So we had that final complementizer discussion, and there the across finite clause the WH scope
was possible, and
with the WH plus a yes no, it still acts as an island. But then it could possibly be, so I haven't checked it for Marathi, but if it works for Marathi too, then both of them should anyway not combine. So it's not really WH island, it's an independent fact.
So let me write down that data, and I want to think about it a little bit, and maybe we pick up on it tomorrow. So today, am I ending on the time I'm supposed to? But yeah, this issue does open up with complementizers that allow wide scope for embedded WH. So it was Bangla and Marathi, right? Okay. All right. So see you tomorrow morning, right? You guys will have your presentations, the first two write-ups cleaned up, whatever, revised and submitted by tomorrow morning, right? And then you would be working, you would have worked or would have, should work this evening, something, I don't know. Because tomorrow afternoon they'll make the third presentations, right? This is what Julie did.
I have a hangover. I don't want to present it in the morning. I wanted after lunch.
Yeah, after lunch. But what are we going to do before lunch? Am I teaching or not teaching? Here's what I think I can do. I mean, I do feel depends on what the, and this is off, what the boss says. We could give you, everybody be here on time, 9:30, right? That's what we said. And maybe I'll address that question that you raised or something so that everybody is here on time. And then we can let them work till 11, till tea, and or I present till 11 and I stop wherever I am. Maybe that. Okay? And then you have time from 11 to lunch, and if you want to go hungry, whatever. No, everybody is making good progress, so I don't think there's a problem. Okay, so I'll teach, but I'll stop at tea time. How about that? Yeah?
So they could work from 11 to 3.
And present.
1 to 5. In 10 minutes we can have it.
3 to 10-minute timing.
8 10s are 80 minutes. So 1 hour 20 minutes with a break in between. They're saying it's 2 and discussion, yeah. So they're saying 2 hours. So we'll start at 3 and we'll finish at 5. And it's okay in this room because that's not recorded. No, but why did we have to finish today? Oh, today. So let me.
Yes, please try and finish by 1. As far as possible, please try and finish your preparation by 1 so that we can start after lunch.
Yes.
In case you need an extra hour, we'll have to sit late. So let's try and avoid that.